From Relay, this is Upgrade, episode 561 for April 28th, 2025. Today's show is brought to you by Fitbod and Vitally. My name is Mike Hurley. I'm joined by Jason Snell. Hi, Jason Snell.
From my garage, this is Jason Snell, brought to you this week by T.
Like every week. I just wanted to start off the show by saying thank you for all the nice messages, people who wrote in to tell me that they're happy that I'm back. I just thought it was very sweet. But we don't have time for all that. I have a Snell Talk question for you, and it comes from Patel, who wants to know, have either of you used a Waymo before? If you haven't, would you be interested in it?
Waymo, for those who don't know, is a self-driving taxi, and they are everywhere in San Francisco. I'll tell you that. They are everywhere.
In Phoenix too, right?
I think that's
Or is that
true.
somebody else?
No, I think they are in Phoenix too.
Yeah.
My mom lives so far outside their range that it's not an option there. And I don't live in San Francisco, and so when I drive in San Francisco, we just went to a Giants game on Saturday, and you can't see, can't go through San Francisco without seeing a Waymo. It's funny. Lauren and I were talking about how obviously these Waymos are pretty good because they have to deal with the worst. Because in San Francisco, I mean, you've got people who don't know, not only is it just regular city driving, but you've got a lot of people who are not from San Francisco, like tourists or people from the outlying area who've come into the city, and they don't know where they're going or what they're doing. We had people coming across like multiple lanes to oh, I'm in the far right lane, but I need to go to Fisherman's Wharf, so I need to be in the left lane, and then they're making this diagonal. And as we watch one of those bad drivers, Lauren said, well, the Waymos handle it, and they do.
I feel like San Francisco is an interesting test bed because I think it might be an interesting rarity in a city of its like connectedness. I think people want to drive there because it's like exciting to drive in San Francisco in certain parts of it where the hills are, where you might not otherwise drive if you were a tourist. I don't know.
I don't know. I don't recommend it, but the answer is no. I would love to try it sometime, but that would require me to be somewhere in the city, wanting to go somewhere else in the city. And generally, since I don't live in the city, I am not like that. I'm going to a Giants game midweek in a few weeks, and I wonder if I might get off the bus a little early or something, and then take a.
You should do that.
Take a Waymo
you should do it for the show.
Just to tick about it. So I'll look at that. I've also thought about in Phoenix, like taking a Waymo as far as it'll go, and then like calling a Lyft to take me the rest of the way or something. But haven't done that either. So anyway, I would be interested in it. I've seen them in action from the outside. They seem like they know what they're doing, right? Like they are, and honestly, they would be stuck at turns forever if they didn't like drive like a normal person. Like they can't be super tentative. And I've seen them around the ballpark after a game, and they seem to figure it out. So
I mean, look, obviously, please don't write in to tell me about the one time one got lost somewhere. Like, of course this happens.
Yeah,
but it does work.
That have happened. But
it's a system that works.
Generally, it has been a positive thing. Even the horror stories, there are very few of them, and most of them involve people, like standing in front of a Waymo. That was an infamous one to block because somebody was asking somebody for a date. It was really gross and very bad. But she pressed the button and to like alert Waymo that there was a problem. And there's the legendary story that I know I've mentioned probably on this podcast about the parking lot we used to use for Giants games that became the parking lot that was being live streamed, and at 2 a.m, the Waymos were all honking at each other.
Yes.
I'm happy to report it's a parking lot again. I park there for Giants games again.
Oh.
So the Waymo parking experiment on 2nd Street in San Francisco in front of the webcam seems to be over. Yeah, they seem to have.
It's probably bad for them PR-wise.
I think that was a bad place where there's an apartment building looking down on them that can live stream the Waymos, so they're out of there. But anyway, I would love to try it sometime. I'm interested in it. I think it's hard not to drive around San Francisco and think that maybe this is the future. That whether all cars get replaced by self-driving things, is a debate that will play out over many years. But the idea that you could just have free roaming taxis that drive themselves, and it is something. You pull up next to one, there's nobody driving it. Like there's nobody in there except the passenger. Or if it doesn't have a passenger, there's literally nobody in the car. It's just doing things. It's pretty wild, but it's becoming routine, and that's what I've heard from people who have taken the Waymos is the first time you do it, it's amazing, and you're like, whoa,
Yeah,
this is so
real
futuristic.
novel.
The fifth time you do it, it's just a cab ride. That's it.
Yeah, as somebody who relies on public transport to the level that I do, I have no problem with the idea of getting in a car driven by a computer because I why do I have faith in anything that drives me or moves me around from place to place? You know, like it is either a human or it's a system or like whatever. Yeah, I've never been in a Waymo, but I would totally do it. I would totally do it.
Yeah.
If you would like to send in a question of your own to help us open a future episode of the show, please go to upgradefeedback.com and send in your own Snell Talk. I have a follow-up item, Jason. We've spoken about Nest in the past. We were this was in the context of them not adding Matter support to some of their older thermostats. They have announced this week that the first and second generation Nest thermostats are going to lose access to most of their connected features, including the app, in October of this year. The thermostat will still act as a thermostat in your home, but you won't be able to do any of the smart stuff with it except anything you can do on the screen itself. I think they're doing a decent thing, and they're giving a really good discount to customers in the US to upgrade their thermostats to a newer model. The problem for me, which is why I'm mentioning this, they are no longer going to be bringing any products to Europe. So I have a second-gen Nest thermostat in my home. It was there when we moved in. So I was like, great. We use the app. So this is really, you know, I'm sure that you have some stuff to say in a minute, but I just want to say if listeners have recommendations for a smart thermostat in the UK, please write into the feedback form and let me know at upgradefeedback.com because I need to do something about this.
So I guess the question I have, and I don't know if people have an answer in the various forums and all that, would be, I wonder what form this kind of bricking will take. Because if it's still on your local network, could you control it with Homebridge or similar? Right? Those tools that let you connect the Nest to HomeKit, will those still work? Or do those also require API access that's going away?
That's a great question.
Also, this just sucks. Google sucks. They cancel all these products that people rely on. They use we complain about Apple sort of being very lackadaisical about some of the products that they roll out, but this is the worst. They just roll things out. They buy things. They kill whole categories where people have to compete with this giant company, Google, and then they just toss it off and say, forget it. By the way, you were incorrect in saying they weren't going to do Matter support on old products. They weren't going to bring Matter support to their currently shipping premium thermostat when they made that announcement. It's like, we're not going to bother, which is just amazing. They do have, I think, some new stuff now. It's not as good as the old stuff. They've kind of decontented the Nest, and it's just like a crappy round thermostat. There are other options. I'm sure that there will be something good in the UK. I used a Nest for a long time. Before I dumped it for an Ecobee, which I had for like 9 months, and then got a new HVAC system that can't use third-party thermostats. So I'm out of this business now. But I appreciate that they're giving people a discount, but like they're not bricking the thermostat really, right? It will still work as a thermostat, and you could still presumably program it on the device. You can do that. It's not great, but it's really disappointing that they've done this. And what really bugs me, and I think it's a really important note, is the attitude. I think The Verge wrote a story about this, where the attitude is very much like, these thermostats have been around for 10, 12 years, which is a pretty good run for a tech product. And I thought, yeah, but not for a thermostat, like not for a home product. Those tech products that are thermostats should last forever. Right. And that's the problem, is if you have to replace something that's in your home every 5 years because it becomes obsolete, the smart home thing is not going to work. Like there needs to be an expectation of more longevity for this stuff. And, it's not like Google can't afford to keep the servers up. That's the other galling thing here, is that they're not getting any more money out of those people. So they're just going to
they could. I mean, they could, I'm
charge
sure.
for it.
they could have a separate technology stack that is a legacy technology stack, right? That is maintained, that just
Yep.
operates the old stuff. If they
Old
want
stuff.
to do, they obviously don't want to do
They don't
that,
want
but
them.
they
Why should they
could do
bother?
that, right? They
What do they
could
care?
because they work now. So like, obviously the reason they're not going to work is they want to do something, right? Or they want to change something on their systems that would necessitate the killing of these products. But that means that there is a system that exists that could support these products if
Sure.
they decided they wanted to do that. But look,
But yeah,
I want to have a thermostat that integrates into the home app, and I'm hoping that this
for
will
sure.
be an opportunity for me to make that switch. And they're just going to push me to do it. There's a company called Hive in the UK, which is seemed to be backed by British Gas, and I think that they do what I'm looking for, which is
Mm.
a decent enough thermostat that I believe they say has home kit access and support, but the documentation is a little shaky. Like I can't
Mm.
really seem to verify it, so that's kind of why I know if anybody out there knows, it's going to be the Upgradian.
And
So I want some recommendations.
is your heat like boiler and radiator kind of stuff?
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
Okay.
So
That's right. And that's why
we
it's
have a
different.
combi boiler.
Yeah, it's appreciably different from how most Americans heat their houses, so it's an issue. But
It just
well,
if what look, here's what I'll say though about this too, right? Look, I just think that to me this suggests that maybe this isn't a good product to invest in your home no matter where you live, because Google's decided that they can't be bothered to support an entire continent of customers,
yeah.
which is quite a lot of people. And so it would suggest to me that they're not serious about this product category because they have done it. It's not impossible. They did it for many years. So they just don't want to do it anymore with their new products. And that would indicate to me a lack of seriousness.
So my only hope is that there is going to be the right way to do this. If you're Google and you're killing these products, the right way to do this is to park it in a state. And I've heard about this from some other companies that they've talked about this, that like if the worst happens, it won't be a brick. If the worst happens, you can have it in a state where it doesn't need to phone home. Like my LaMetric time, that is my little clock that I have under the TV. They finally put in a feature that is like a local plug-in, local data source kind of thing, and that made me feel better because if those people go out of business, their device now has a mode where basically I can feed it data from my server and they don't need to be involved. So the right thing for Google to do is place those nests in some sort of a state where they're on the network locally, and things like Homebridge plugins and things like that will work with them. My fear is that everything is going through their authentication API, and once it's turned off, they just won't work anymore. It doesn't matter. And that's a shame, right? Because you should be able to let people kind of like keep those things alive and functioning, even if you're not using the actual Nest app anymore. So yeah, it's a real bummer. By the way, as an aside, because I'm going to use the power of upgrade here, I still have my Ecobee Smart Thermostat Premium. It's sitting in a drawer. If somebody would like me to make a decent offer for me to send it to them, you won't just be using an Ecobee Thermostat Premium with 2 sensors. You'll be using mine.
Oh,
I'm
Jason
turning into
Snell
Marco
edition.
here. I'll sign it for you if you want.
Wow.
Like I don't care. I just I realized I should probably sell that, and don't make me go to eBay, people. Anyway.
Find a way to get in contact with Jason directly. Do not send these requests
Upgradefeedback.com.
No, don't do that. No, don't send it to the feedback form. Find Jason and offer it to him. I don't want 25 different requests to field in the feedback form. This is part of the I don't know, the game here is you've got to find Jason and contact him, and then you can get the what is it, an Ecobee?
Ecobee Premium, yeah. It's good. It's a good thermostat. I just can't use it anymore.
That's another company that does interesting products, but they don't make versions outside of the US. But never mind.
Yeah, well, Google especially, it's not really an international company.
Yeah,
it's
really true.
Very
just
local. Just very small local California company.
It's time to lawyer up, Jason Snell.
Clunk clunk.
Thank you. It's happened. The time has come. Apple and Meta are the first 2 companies to be hit with fines in relation to the DMA from the European Union, the Digital Markets Act. Meta has been fined 200 million euros. This is For as much as I can understand it, because it was all very confusing to me when I read it. Maybe I don't track Meta enough closely, but it seems like in Europe they offer a product, I think, where you can pay Meta and you don't have to see ads in Facebook or Instagram. Um, but the EU is unhappy about that. Like they want there to be a middle ground where you give more limited private information. Um, Honestly, I can't see what the problem is here, but maybe it's
it.
not.
What bugs me about it is that it seems to be that they lay down some rules, and Meta said, "Okay, we'll build this product we don't want to build," and then the EC is like, "Actually, we want you to build it differently." Which, I'm sorry, this is one of the things that really does set me off about some of this EC regulation.
Yeah.
Is they're basically telling companies, they're dictating products for companies to build in order to be compliant.
Yeah.
Instead of
But
saying, here are what the rules are, follow the rules. Because they're like, oh, we didn't mean it like that. Well, make your rules better then, but
yeah.
stop designing new
Yes,
versions
totally.
of Facebook for Facebook to implement for you.
I think it's incredible that they built it. I think it's actually an interesting idea. I think it's also maybe not a bad business for Meta if they can get it right. You know, like everybody, you know, so many companies and have like pay or get ads. But the idea that they're like, no, we actually meant we want you to make your advertising this effect. No, I don't agree with this.
It's
but anyway,
amazing.
They also fined Apple 500 million euros. And for Apple, we're back to anti steering rules. So the European Commission does not like the way that Apple has set up alternative app stores for all of the reasons that I guess we don't like how they set up alternative app stores. The core technology fee is being considered as a key sticking point of theirs because it makes developers, it disincentivizes developers to go down this route because they're worried they could get, I don't know, like absolutely obliterated financially. And it also adds complexity or additional cost to customers because apps that could be free they have to charge to make sure that they can cover the fees. We see this in all sorts of spots. The EC also believes that the eligibility requirements for alternative distribution are too strict, and that the method of installing alternative app stores is considered too complicated and burdensome. I don't disagree with any of this. I really like these points. There are many more, but like these are kind of the key points, and these were all of the things that I mean, me and you focused on for months, seeing that's going to be a problem.
So, Apple's response to this, they did the typical "I'm outraged by this."
I could believe this,
but one of the things that they mentioned, and this is going to keep coming up, and I remember when we hit on this a few years ago, they're going to say the EC wants us to give things to people for free. That's what they'll say. What they mean is Apple's defense of them keeping as much revenue as possible in their platform is that it's a proxy for paying for developer tools. Now, I would argue that that's a lie, that it's never been a proxy, and it's just a sort of a legal fig leaf that they're trying to put over this. But that's their argument is we provide APIs and developer tools for developers, and we should be compensated for that in some way. Now, I'm open to that argument, although I do not have a lot of patience for it. I feel like Apple's benefit is that they have a strong platform and they can sell a lot of phones for a lot of money and make huge profits, and that charging for developer tools is not, if they want to do that, I guess they could charge up front or something, but like, no, they benefit from having this model because it creates a rich ecosystem that benefits them when they sell all of their things. Also, the EC isn't saying don't compete. The EC is saying don't force all of your app developers to hide the existence of the web from users. And honestly, again, I am not a lawyer. I cannot go into the details of this, but just as a person who understands how Apple works, I look at this and I would not accept their argument either. I would say you can compete all you want, but you cannot make developers pretend the web doesn't exist and say, how dare you use anything? And then when they finally build it, they build it in such a limited way, such a non-functional way, behind all of the scare alerts. Because again, remember, one of the key things here is danger, danger, danger. You are going to a website. Gasp. Which is, again, just that's not how people are. That's not how the world works. It's bananas that Apple thinks that, oh, iPhone users don't use like the internet or anything. They're just inside the warm embrace of Apple. It's they make Safari. It's wild. So I have very little time for this. I understand Apple sort of saying we want to be compensated in some way, but even then, I kind of roll my eyes at that. And yeah, this is one of the truth is this is one of the easy ones. This is one of the easy ones. This anti-steering stuff, like Apple is asking developers to say that the sky is green. Essentially, it does not map to reality. It's such an easy one to say. No, if you are an app developer and you've got a website where people can log in and do things, you can tell people about that. And Apple's like, no, 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 no. You can't. It's too dangerous to share that information with them because they might choose something outside of our control. It's like, well, they might not, but like they might. Just deal with it. Like,
it's it's like a pretend competition is what they created. It's like, we're going to allow you to compete with us, but we're going to draw the rules of competition in such a way that it's incredibly hard for you to win.
Right.
Like, it's just like very, very unfair rules. I mean, we've been calling this for the whole time, right?
Yeah.
The European Commission says that Apple has 60 days to comply with this new ruling. And I guess I just say, what now then? So this fine is large, right? 500 million euros is large, but it's not as big as it could have been. The European Commission has the ability, based on the rules, to levy fines of up to 10% of global revenue for a year. So I think it's something like 40 billion euros they could have asked for. They've asked for 500 million, which is still an incredible amount of money, but it's nowhere near as much. So maybe they're leaving themselves some room. Maybe they're a little bit nervous now. I don't know what the situation is. This is the decision that they have made, and they levied this fine. If Apple does not comply within those 60 days, my understanding is they can fine them again and just keep doing it. I think the thing that's potentially has changed is the US government now has an opinion. Under Joe Biden, there was zero opinion seemingly given about the DMA stuff. It has been called an economic extortion that will not be tolerated. I don't know what that means. Nobody knows what that means.
Nobody knows what it means.
It has created a different scenario, I think, than where we find ourselves before. It is a different scenario, and there's more stuff about this later on in the show about kind of like Apple and the government, but for right now, I don't really know where we're going to sit.
Yeah, it's a saber rattling going on there. I mean, what are they going to do? More tariffs? I mean, it's I don't know. I think if I were the EC, I'd be like, all right, let's see what you got, right? Like, because that's the kind of thing that gets negotiated. But what they're trying to do now is just get them to tone it down or stop it, and I don't think they will. So. We'll just have to keep our eye on it. But neither of us are surprised that they looked at what Apple did with their very limited implementation and said, no, that's not good enough, because it does feel very much like Apple was trying to adhere to the minimum possible by the letter of the law, even though it didn't actually fulfill the point of the law. And so, of course, the EC was like, no, that's not good enough. So here we are.
But I think it does underpin another point that we were talking about the whole time of like, there was an easier way to do this. There was a better way to do this, and nobody wanted to do it, right? Like, we shouldn't have gotten this far that Apple built this whole system and then it's deemed to be illegal, right? Like, there should have been something between these two entities that got them to a point where they were happy with, rather than this dance. Right, but I guess that is wishful thinking. That is not how the world works, but it's how I would like the world to work.
Takes two to dance, right? And I would say, yes, we can be frustrated that if the EC puts down rules and says follow these rules, they get criticized for not providing enough detail. But if the EC gives all the detail, they will get criticized for forcing people to create products, right? Which is what sort of happened with Meta. So. And the other side of it is there could be a give and take where Apple says, okay, we're thinking of doing it this way. What do you think? And, clearly they don't like it, right? Clearly they don't like it. And yes, you're right. There should have been a back and forth where they said, if you implement this, you will be fined. And for all we know, there was. But they're like,
you know what that
go
probably
ahead
was,
and fine
right?
us. go ahead and find us, they said.
I have no doubt there's so much back channeling going on during the scenario. Yes, I just wish that there could have been. I wish that everyone could have taken this, and this is, again, it's unrealistic. I just wish that in this scenario, everybody went into it with an open mind, and like that everyone went into it and being like, we can do something here that will benefit our customers and us, but obviously they're not going to do that. But I just wished. I just wish. This episode is brought to you by Fitbod. If you're looking to change your fitness level, it can be hard to know where to get started. That's why I'm pleased to let you know that Fitbod is an easy and affordable way to build a fitness plan made for you. Everybody has their own path through personal fitness, which is why Fitbod uses data to make sure they customize things to suit you perfectly. It will adapt as you improve and change to make sure that every workout remains challenging, pushing you to make the progress that you're looking for. You will see the best results when a workout program is tailored to you. This is to your body, to the experience you have, to the environment and equipment that you're in, and the goals that you may see. Fitbod saves all of this information for you in your Fitbod gym profile, and it makes sure that it tracks your muscle recovery as you're doing your workouts. This makes sure that you avoid burnout, you keep up your momentum, and every exercise that you're doing, you're going to be learning them in the right way. They have more than 1,000 demonstration videos in the app to make sure that you can watch them and be comfortable with them, because they know that when everything works well and your entire muscular system works together, you're going to be seeing the best results. If you overwork some muscles or injure yourself or underwork some muscles, you're going to see a negative impact. And that is why Fitbod tracks your muscle fatigue and recovery to design a well-balanced workout routine for you. This also means you're not going to get bored because the app is going to be giving you new exercises, new reps, supersets, and circuits. Fitbod makes sure to build the best possible workout for you by combining billions of data points with AI and exercise science. They have been fine-tuned by their certified personal trainers to make sure that you're going to be getting a great experience. I love Fitbod. I've used it for years, and I'm finding it particularly good right now because I'm finding myself at home, kind of like stuck at home more, and like I'm out and about less. So I'm able to, if I have a little bit of time, get a workout in, and that is really beneficial to me. And you can do it wherever you want. You can very easily tell them what you have access to, and it will tailor that workout to meet you and your needs. Personalized training of this quality can be expensive. Fitbod is just $12.99 a month or $79.99 a year, but you can get 25% off your membership by going to fitbod.me/upgrade. So go now and get your customized fitness plan at fitbod.me/upgrade. That is fitbod.me/upgrade for 25% of your membership. Our thanks to Fitbod for their support of this show and relay. Rumor Roundup time.
Yeehaw.
Known leaker. I wish there was a better phrase for this.
I searched for this last week and I ended up with purveyor of Apple rumors.
Yeah. It's just
I don't know what to say.
It's hard to this is just the word, right? So I think I just have to go for it, but it feels derogatory to the person. That like because why do we not call Mark Gurman a leaker? We don't do that. But I think leaker has become like this phrase which is like used in YouTube and stuff, and it's like cool. Anyway, but Majin Buu is reporting that iPadOS 19, the iPad, will gain a menu bar when it is connected to a Magic Keyboard, and also shared that Stage Manager improvements will be a big part of the iPadOS 19 update, saying that it will, quote, make managing apps and windows smoother and more productive than ever.
Okay.
What do you make of all of this?
This is the detail we did not get from Mark Gurman when he said, hey, it will be better at productivity, multitasking, and window management. Like, okay.
Like a Mac.
Like a Mac. The people will be happy, I think is the other part he said. Those people will be happy. And that was all he got. But Majin Buu is here to say, yeah, it's going to be, plug in and get a menu bar. I will just point out, because it made me laugh when I saw this story, because I thought, oh, I literally wrote this in 2021. I said, look, they got all the pieces. Because if you hold down the command key when you're using an iPad with a keyboard, it brings up the menu shortcuts, and it's literally, in some apps, it's literally organized by the Mac menu because of Catalyst. You can build a whole menu bar in Catalyst, and it also sort of shows up in this one view. It is just a matter of will for Apple to put that in as a feature. And John Gruber wrote about this the other day, and I agree wholeheartedly. One of the greatest innovations in the Mac, and one of the things that still makes the Mac great, is the menu bar, is the fact that all of your computer programs have, unlike back when we had to like type in things in commands back in the day, like all of the features of your programs are in the menu bar. It lists them. You can get them from there. You can you can see the keyboard shortcuts that you can use instead. In the system, you can assign keyboard shortcuts. There's so much richness there that you see any iPad app that is trying to be complicated, complex, powerful, you see them struggle with like, how do I make sure that somewhere here in the UI this feature is exposed? When on a Mac you just say put it in the menu bar. And the problem is it's actually appreciably worse because a lot of those contexts where it's in the UI are in very specific contexts where you would never, it's like where is it? Whereas I can go up to the help menu and type a string on the Mac and find that menu bar command and where it lives and even run it right from there. So I think this is a great idea. And on top of that, just more broadly, we talk about Stage Manager, we talked about iPad multitasking. We've talked about how one of the huge problems that Apple faces is making an iPad OS that is friendly to people who just use it as a tablet. And they don't want to accidentally drag a tab out of Safari and suddenly end up in split view. They just want to use it the way they want to use it. And then there are the people who are like, well, no, I kind of want it to be Mac-like. It's like, how in the world do we do both? Well, one of the ways is to detect when a keyboard or other device similar is attached to the iPad and enter a different mode. Because then you've got a keyboard, so probably you want a different kind of interface. You've got a keyboard and a trackpad. You probably want something different. It makes so much sense. And all I can say, so I wrote about that in 2021. All I can say is the only reason we haven't gotten this is because of dogma within Apple, right? It's Apple saying, no, that's a bridge too far. And I would just say, I wrote that piece in 21 because in 20 and 19, they started adding pointer support and then they shipped a keyboard with a trackpad, and like the horse is out of the barn. Like all those arguments about like, oh, the iPad can't, it's not like that and all, like it's like they sell a thing that makes the iPad a laptop now. So embrace it. Just do it and make it good. And I actually think this is great for people who don't ever buy iPad Pros and don't buy keyboards and stuff, because it walls that stuff off. It's like, you want to use it like a laptop, go ahead. We've got a laptop mode now. So I think it's a good idea. Again, I thought it was a good idea 4 years ago too. And it's just, I'd say it's baffling, but it's more like entirely expected for the iPad that there's a weird tug of war inside Apple about what the iPad should be. And they lay all the groundwork, and then they just don't do it for years afterward. So, great. Sounds great. This would have been a great feature in 2022. It still might be, but like, they could have done this 3 years ago or 2 years ago or last year. Why now? I don't know.
Yeah, this kind of thing for me, I know that this is the problem with rumors, right? Where I'm just like, okay, let's see, because I don't see realistically how this makes any material change to the iPad experience. Like, great, there's a menu bar now. Like, I don't then imagine that the majority of iPad app developers are going to make significant changes to their applications that make them better. Like, I will, I don't know.
We'll see.
Are Google gonna put stuff in the menu bar?
Well,
like,
that's
no,
the worst
they're not
example, because
that.
Google's a terrible app developer.
But that's the point, though.
In general, yeah. Well,
right?
This is the thing, is it's all about execution. It's all about how developers respond to it. We haven't even mentioned like managing apps in Windows smoother and more productive. Like, what is it? It's all about the details, because we heard that about how many times have we heard this story, right? That's what it comes down to, is how many times have we heard this story? And of course, like I said, when Gurman's thing came out, what goes in those windows that you're managing? What goes in them? Because that's one of the big problems with the iPad, is the functionality of apps isn't there. I had somebody ask me last week, based on this story, it's like, what do I personally consider an impediment to doing my work on an iPad? And I always just come to like, what would make me not bring my MacBook Pro with me to Arizona to visit my mom? And the answer is all the audio stuff we've talked about, the inability for multiple apps to, run at the same time and access the audio subsystem, recording all my podcast stuff. stuff that keyboard shortcuts that are global, so you could assign shortcuts anywhere and use them anywhere. It's a clipboard manager or support for apps to do things like that in the background. The ability for apps like audio and video editors to run in the background and not be killed, or other apps that you've got, like the whole like not things that aren't killed in the background, or the ability to have multiple media streams playing at once and they just overlap each other, like on the Mac, instead of pausing one thing while I'm doing another. There's nothing like watching a video and scrolling through a web page, and the web page tries to play a video and the video you're watching pauses. And that happened to me last week. So there's a lot of things that are functional about iPadOS. So like they look, I think adding a menu bar is good. There are a lot of apps that will support it and that will in fact already support it, and that Apple can lead the way there, and that it will add some usability. But there are, it's not going to cure it, right? There's a lot that needs to happen, and a lot of that is on Apple, because like if the OS refuses to let apps behave in a Mac-like way, making the interface more Mac-like doesn't help.
Because also, like, how far can you go interface-wise when it only becomes Mac-like when you connect the Magic Keyboard?
Well, I think that is a question, right? Which is, if you care about your app when it's just a touch app, then you have to still put all the UI everywhere when it's a touch app.
Yep.
But at least you could expose it in the menu bar afterward. And again, it'll be like, I think, more pro apps, maybe things that are targeted more at this kind of semi-mythical high-end iPad. But like, Apple believes that user exists because they make an iPad Pro and a keyboard, right? Like they act as if that user exists, and they make Final Cut and Logic, right? Like I think there are some apps that will take advantage of this, and we'll see, we'll see how that goes.
Yeah. There've been so many times where Apple has said like desktop class apps, right? Desktop class apps. And they have features that you can get you there, but they're not used.
No, and there's still fundamentals. I mean, again, it comes down to the details, because like when this person asked me, what was an impediment, I was trying to imagine working in Stage Manager on my iPad Pro, and a lot of it is things like window management. Window management isn't just moving a window around on screen, although it does really bug me that like on an iPad you have to click multiple times in order to do something with a window. On a Mac you can just click the close box. But also, like, on the iPad you can't just do like Command N to open a new window in an app, because the apps don't think like Mac apps. They're like, oh, a new window. Do you mean to replace this or add a tab? Or it's like, no, I just want a new window. I'm in multi-window mode. And the app's like, oh, I don't know. I can't really do that. And it gets so frustrating. And it's stuff like that it's just, or expose, or like there are so many of these details that the iPad just doesn't offer, that get in your way. And that's it, is like, is this a revolutionary set of detailed changes, or is it 3 new features that get tossed in the mix and then they walk away again? And that's what we have to wait and see about, is the details of how they do this.
I'm just going to be really annoying, and I'm just going to say it. Like, I like my iPad as an iPad. When I connect it to a Magic Keyboard, just give me Mac OS. Like, I just what I want. Like, just give me Mac OS. Like, you don't need to do all this. Like, just give me that. I'll have that, right? And that would be amazing, because I know these machines can run it. I know it can. My iPad Pro has a more powerful chip than my MacBook Air, but my MacBook Air is infinitely more capable than my iPad Pro.
There's nothing stopping Apple from building a classic like virtualization layer that lets you run Mac apps in this mode in iPadOS, not reboot into macOS, but it's like macOS is back there, or aspects of macOS are back there. They could try that too. I think this is the push and pull at Apple, which is, some people are like, let's make the iPad more Mac-like, but not the Mac. And then other people are like, well, just do a Mac then, or, whatever. Because I think I've heard several people talk about this in this latest wave of iPad despair that we've all been going through, which is, is the answer that what people really want is better and more flexible hardware on the Mac side. And the answer is yes to both. Like, one way or another, having a little tablet that you can also attach and make into a laptop is a pretty cool thing. And right now, Apple doesn't let you do both. You either get a tablet that runs a tablet OS that can sit in a laptop shape, or you have a laptop. But that's it. Like, there's no in between. And I think that is probably at the core of Apple having this real ambivalence, because what they really like is selling iPad Pros and selling iPad Pros with Magic Keyboards and showing them off. But what they don't seem to like is making it a little, crossing that line and making it a little more like the Mac. Which, it would be, if I could take an M3 or M4 iPad Pro with me and know that I could do everything I could do on my Mac, and the rest of the time it's just an iPad, so I don't need to bring two devices, that'd be great. That'd be great.
Apple,
and we know they could.
Federico said this, and I'll say it too. I will pay you the price of both machines. I will do it. Give me an iPad that is $1,000 more but has Mac OS. I'll pay it, because then I only need one thing, right?
Yeah.
Where currently,
and it can do both.
I'm carrying both things because I love both things. This is what I'm saying.
Yes.
Like, this is not me being down on the iPad. This is me being more pro iPad than most people. I want it to do what it does, and I love it. I don't own a Magic Keyboard for my iPad Pro because I don't want that. Like, I just want the best iPad experience that I can have. And like, I don't want it to be confused and like further by being like, oh, and now there's
almost
a menu bar sometimes. Like, I don't want that. I just want the iPad to be the iPad because I think the iPad is amazing at that. But if you were going to say we need to make it more professional and more capable, then let me run Mac OS on it and just like forget iPad OS. Like, just iPad OS is just like, just make it this like in between thing. It's bigger than an iPhone. It's because it has a bigger screen, it can do some other stuff. We don't need to try and like make it like a Mac. And you know what? As well, Apple, prove me wrong, right? At WWDC this year, please. I've been burned too many times to assume that we're about to get the Mac on again.
I get it, but I also want to point out that what you said is I don't attach a keyboard to my iPad. I don't want that. And this whole thing is saying you would never get that. But the people who choose to attach a keyboard to their iPad would get it.
Yeah, but I just don't think it's one of those. I just don't think I can't imagine a scenario where it's really going to be that great. That's what I'm saying. It's like, and again, that's why I'm saying prove me wrong. But like, if all you're doing is taking the stuff that's behind keyboard shortcuts and putting them up in a menu bar, like, is that really worth doing? Like, is it really worth doing? Like, I don't know if it is, because I just don't. What I'm saying is like, you can do all of that, but I just don't think most app developers are going to get on board with you and put this into their applications. And so I'm just saying, just give me the Mac on it instead.
Well, that attitude's a little bit defeatist, but I would say that I think the truth is,
Jason, I've been defeated so many times.
I know you've been defeated so many times. It was like, yeah, well, this is it. I think the core question here has always been, what is the high-end use of the iPad, really? And the problem is, Apple has seemingly has either changed its mind or can't decide. And I firmly believe in the mid-2010s, the idea was that the iPad would continue to evolve until it could replace the Mac. And they put in a Mac compatibility layer for legacy Mac apps, but that it would be like OS X replacing OS 9. That the iPad OS would eventually be a thing you could run on desktops and on laptops and everything else, and it would be able to support that, plus it would run on tablets and convertibles and stuff like that. And then the Mac was being put out to pasture. And then they changed their mind, and they built these Apple Silicon Macs, and they sold a zillion of them, and the Mac is doing better than it ever has. And now you look at the iPad and you go, what's this for again? And you're right. As much as I have enjoyed, because I really love my iPad and it is the computing device I use the most, but the truth is that the iPad Pro feature thing with the high price tag and all that, like, you could argue that it's really like the stuff with Apple Pencil. Like, there are some specific use cases that are up at the high end, but that most of what you're trying to do is kind of make a Mac that's not as good as a Mac. And so to your point, the question would be, at that point, do you just give up and say, no, just use the Mac? And when a user says, well, yeah, but I want a convertible that's a tablet most of the time and then sometimes is a Mac. Right now, Apple, with all its hardware prowess that we talk about, is like, oh, we can't do that. We can't make that. Well, they can make it, They have made it. They just don't want to allow it because it would be too, you're mixing your chocolate into your peanut butter or whatever. And, you can't do that. It's too weird to mix those two things. And so that, this is what happens when a company hasn't decided what it wants to do, and that there are different parts of that organization that are pulling it in different directions, because I get that it's complicated, but one of the reasons it's complicated is that Apple keeps building this amazing hardware and then erecting these very weird barriers between their operating systems, while trying to ape one of their operating systems with the other one. And I kind of agree with you. I'd be okay if an M3, M4 iPad Pro just turned into Mac mode when you snapped it on a Magic Keyboard.
Mm-hmm.
I think that would be okay. Also, with all the rumors about touchscreen Macs coming down the pike, this gets even weirder. It's like, okay, what's that? Or that foldable laptop / iPad that's supposedly in the works for the next couple of years. How does that work? What is that product? And so my hope is that those products are being developed because they've figured out how to bridge the gap here, and we just can't see it yet. And I hope that's the case. But as you said, we've been defeated so many times that it's hard to think optimistically about it.
Again, really, like I want them to prove me wrong, right? Like I
want to believe.
Yes. Like I really want it, but I just won't get my hopes up. Because again, it's what I'm saying. Like I even think in a scenario where Apple really tries, it's becoming more and more complicated to get people to go along with them. However, Majin Buu also shared that iPhones with a USB-C port will also be able to show this new stage manager when connected to a monitor. Quote, while not a full desktop mode, it will allow users to extend their screen space, great for presentations, editing, or enhanced viewing. I don't know what this means. Like, I think I know what this is, but the description that Buu gives does not help. Like, to me, this is just you plug your phone in and, like, it's basically a version of iPadOS in a way that like iPadOS shows, but not a full desktop mode. Like, isn't that? I'm very confused by it. But all of this, everyone's saying this, and I agree. All of this feels like, and potentially even everything we've just been speaking about, maybe they're doing all of this to prepare for the folding iPhone. Maybe that's what this is all for, like improvements to Stage Manager, windowing. It's all to prepare for the folding iPhone, which then brings a folding tablet in the future potentially too, right? Like this is hopefully the beginning groundwork that is required to get to that next thing.
Right.
Like the story we told before, but like, hey, you should build size classes into your iPhone app. What is a size class? What does that mean? And then, because we have split screen multitasking on the iPad coming, right?
Yeah,
like,
and bigger phones are coming, and
bigger phones are coming,
and
all this kind of stuff. Like Apple have done this multiple times where they ask you to do a thing, and the reason they're asking you to do it is because there's a product coming.
Certainly a possibility that both of these stories are not as much about existing hardware as they are about hardware that is coming, and we're going to get the weird mode where it's like, well, this is good, but it's got all these limitations, and everybody at Apple's like, right? Like they know that they're actually there for the product that's coming next year or the year after, but they got to start work. It's a little like that iPhone Air, which I firmly believe is going to be designed as a stepping stone to a folding iPhone, and you got to make a thin plane of technology,
so thin,
so that you can then make it foldable. So I could see that here too. Also, I mean, people have talked about this for a long time. I know that Apple has this, why buy one product when you can buy 3 from us? But like, our phones are the most important device that most of us have, and they're the most popular Apple product, right? The iPhone is the most popular Apple product. There are lots of people who have an iPhone and do not own another Apple product. Just do the math. There have to be. So if Apple Silicon is so powerful, and Apple's got a real advantage in Apple Silicon, and they've already built this operating system so that it can expand to larger screens. This is one of those dogma things. It's like, why not let people plug their iPhone into a screen and a keyboard?
Yeah.
Why not and let them have, because so many people around the world use their iPhone as their primary computer already. And like, what if you could kind of lead them down the path a little bit and say the iPhone is, you can charge it and use it on a screen with a keyboard when you're at your desk, and then unplug it and take it in your pocket. And like, actually pretty cool, right? Like, why not see where it goes? And I think that for too long, when I talk about this kind of Apple dogma, it's very much like, no, this far, no further. We can't go. It's just an iPhone isn't that way. And the other way to approach it would be like, you know what? We don't think a lot of people are going to do this, but we're going to let them try and we're going to learn from it. And they could do that because the truth is, not a lot of people are going to attach their iPhone to a monitor and a keyboard and a trackpad, right? That's not going to happen. But some people will try it, and Apple will learn things from it, and they'll learn, and app developers will learn, and maybe we'll get something out of that that is a good lesson for whatever the future of computing is.
And finally, Mark Gurman is reporting that Apple's secret robotics unit will now be under John Ternus's organization, marking another area of responsibility taken from John Giannandrea after the executive shifts from the Apple Intelligence fallout. It's being said that this will allow for Giannandrea to put more efforts into running Apple's AI efforts, which is not Siri. This is actually the models.
Yeah.
And the research and all that kind of stuff. The robotics team itself continues to be run day to day by Kevin Lynch, but now is in the John Ternus hardware group, aka the John Ternus taking over the company group, which it increasingly feels like is going to happen.
It's the Apple built these silos to work on stuff, and it's a very un-Apple thing to do. And they seem to have finally just decided we're not going to do it that anymore. We're not going to have these separate groups. Hardware group will work on hardware. Software group will work on software. We're not going to have a robotics team. We're not going to have a robot group. There's going to be a hardware group with robot people in it. We're going to have, we're not going to have a Vision Pro group. We're going to have hardware people working on Vision Pro, and we're going to have software people working on Vision OS. And that is the Apple way of doing it. And I know you put those groups together when it's a Skunkworks project or when it's early days, but at some point there are advantages. We'll just call it the way it is. I mean, this is like when I was in second grade, there was a kid who didn't come with us to third grade. And what he told us is that the teacher asked him to stay behind and help her next year.
Oh no!
Well, I mean, that kid got held back, right? That kid got held back. That kid couldn't go to third grade. He wasn't.
Yeah, look, Giannandrea has been pushed out, or they're carving something for him, or whatever. But
the argument is that what he's good at is this, more academic and research into AI developments and building AI models that are then turned into products by the software team, but they're at the higher level of research and experimentation. But as Gurman points out, the other reason you do all of this is that when John Giannandrea reacts to having most of his responsibility taken away by looking for a new job, you have the ability then there will be fewer people that you need to move when he quits. So that's also true. But I think it's also true that like having a research group looking into foundational AI models, that's a very different job than what the OS group is doing, the software group is doing. And so that's fine. Like, it's fine to have a group that does that. That's good. If Apple wants to build its own model, it needs a group to do that, whether John Giannandrea is in charge of it or it ultimately is just Craig Federighi or something like that. So be it. But that group does need to exist. But they're also prepping for him to be held back from,
because there was that reporting a couple of weeks ago, right? That Craig Federighi is like, hey, just use open source models to train stuff. So
maybe, but I mean, we'll see. I think there's too much pride at Apple to say we're just going to lift other people's stuff, but who knows? You never know what it is.
Maybe they've just decided they don't need the foundation anymore, and they can build their own models on top, and they feel like they have the people for that. I don't know. I mean,
if I were Tim Cook, I would still want to fund AI research, right? I'd still want to do that. I'd still want to have a team that funds AI research that is there monitoring what's going on and trying to give us advantages or allowing us to keep pace. And that's
the situation is though, Jason, that if you're Tim Cook, you can fund everything. Like, you can just keep funding.
I know, but
areas
you've been burned here. You got to. I think you got to keep going. I think saying, "Oh, AI is so important that we're not going to do it anymore. We're just going to pick up the scraps that are on the ground," is a bad decision. So I don't think he's going to make that decision. I don't think Apple is capable of saying that. Right? Saying, "Oh, we give up." They're not going to do that. But the big hire you brought in, who's now only in charge of that, I could see he thought he was building an empire, and in fact, he's just been put away on an island somewhere doing this. So, he seems not long for the company, but that work will continue. And then as for robotics, like, Mark Gurman loves the word robotics, and he keeps talking about he keeps talking about humanoid robots that Apple might be working on in the future. Look, there's research. Speaking of research, we saw that one video about the thing that was pushing the water cup on the desk and all of that. Like Apple is doing research because there's hardware, especially in the home, but in general, like having the ability to do things like pivot a thing that's on a tabletop, like maybe, right? And like you said, they've got all the money. Like being really good at hardware and looking at how machine learning models and allow you to do things in the real world in terms of interaction as well. Why not do that? Now we'll see. I am skeptical that much is going to come of this anytime soon, but you never know.
This episode is brought to you by our friends over at Vitally. Vitally is bringing in a new era for customer service productivity with their all-in-one platform. Vitali's collaborative workspace combines your customer data with all the capabilities that you expect from today's project management and work platforms. With Vitally, you can measure the effectiveness of OKRs and operational strategies on customer outcomes at scale thanks to their Goals feature. Goals allows you to track the progress of your accounts against target metrics, meaning you can standardize goal setting across the board so you know exactly how effective your processes really are. And best of all, it's designed for today's customer success team. That's why Vitally operates with unparalleled efficiency, improves net revenue retention, and delivers best-in-class customer experiences. Vitally is offering a free pair of AirPods Pro for every upgrade listener who books a qualified meeting. So if you're a customer success decision maker, schedule your call by visiting vitally.io/upgradefm. So if you're a customer success decision maker, go to vitally.io/upgradefm. That's vitally.io/upgradefm for a free pair of AirPods Pro when you schedule a qualified meeting. Our thanks to Vitally for their support of this show and Relay. The Financial Times is reporting that Apple has set a goal to produce the entirety of their US iPhone production in India by the end of 2026, that is next year. This would be about 60 million iPhones across the whole range if they were producing the US stock, but would probably be more than that, right? Because they obviously produce iPhones in India for many places around the world, so they would need to increase it significantly. This would be double the amount that they're currently producing if they were just producing that 60 million. In the short term, you take some short-term thinking on it, this would be better for potential tariffs, whatever they may end up being. And in the long term, this is a further diversification of the supply chain, which Apple have been kind of marching towards for a long time.
Yep.
Mark Gurman doesn't think this would be possible. Considering that the 2026 iPhone lineup could be quite radically new with a folding iPhone and a, quote, more glass-centric Pro model as the 20th anniversary iPhone, Mark says, Apple has never produced a major new product design outside China for the first go-around. So basically, Mark thinks that it would be difficult and maybe Apple wouldn't feel comfortable with the work needed to get these products exactly right, trusting new supply chains and new factories. There are plants in India that are currently being built that would be necessary to increase volume of production that can meet this 60 million unit goal, let alone the new infrastructure required to produce, say, a folding iPhone.
So first off, I wanted to mention one of the ways you do this is the places that India-built iPhones are shipping to start getting China-built iPhones instead. So you can move the production around because they don't have necessarily the tariffs that the United States has. So that's part of what you could do. So you don't necessarily need to, you can move that. There's a shell game there where you move those into China and then take the India phones and then you ship them to the US and you do it like that. I appreciate that this seems like a big ramp up. So yeah, you've got to wonder how much of this is real, how much of this is sending messages to the US and to China about what Apple's trying to do. China and India, by the way, are kind of adversaries, right? Like that's interesting. And there was that story, I think do you have a link to this in there, that the idea that a lot of the equipment that is required to build these factories comes from China, and that the information, right, had that report that they set up, Foxconn maybe, somebody set up like a fake company in Vietnam who took import of all of the manufacturing things and then just turn it around and send it to the Foxconn Apple factory in India?
Chinese, so I've got quote, Foxconn has seen approval times from Chinese authorities for exporting iPhone making equipment from its factories to those in India rise from 2 weeks to as long as 4 months. They're also rejecting some export applications without explanation. So they've been creating these fake companies to move the stuff around.
Right, which is now the jig is up sort of on that, and we'll see. But this is the point here is that that this is the first step of Chinese resistance to Apple manufacturing outside of China, is that the parts that you need to build the factories also need to come from China at this point. And this is the story of all the tariffs and about supply chains and things like that, is you're like, oh, just build a factory in the US. But it's like way more complicated than this. And this is a great example is, oh, we need to get out of China. Let's build a factory somewhere else. Okay, how do we build a factory somewhere else? Well, first you need all the equipment from China. Like, okay. Then so this is the Tim Cook thing, right? This is why Tim Cook is still the CEO of Apple. This is his job. His job is, how do you benefit Apple and try to hedge against whatever is going to happen in the future, and get the US to do what you want, and get China to do what you want, and get India to do what you want, and get China not to be mad at India and the US to make it impossible for you to get what you want. Like, all of these things are in play. And the good news for Apple, I guess, is that the tariffs and things like that allow it to have an excuse to try to expand where it produces. And what it's not trying to do is get out of China. And I think that that's important. It's trying to supplement production elsewhere because of the issues between the US and China in terms of trade. But still, if you're China, you're like, yeah, but we like it better when it's all here. So you drag your feet, you slow it down, you make it difficult this is international intrigue is what this is.
Yeah, my conspiracy theory on this is that this is not real, and that this is Apple trying to spook China on behalf of the US government to come to the table and negotiate the post-tariff stupidity that China and America are now in, because China's not backing down. America looks like it's kind of backing down a little bit now against the tariffs because China's kind of refusing to back down. And I have no doubt, I know the fact that Apple is trying to diversify, but this significant, this quickly and publicly suggests to me that something's going on here at a time when it's also being asked. I think Elizabeth Warren, right, has written to Tim Cook to say, like, hey, how'd you get that exemption? Which I don't know if, like, I don't think it's just Tim Cook here, but nevertheless, like, he is obviously, we know, and it's clear that he has been having conversations with the administration. I would not be surprised if this is a part of a leverage that's being placed. It just seems to me to be very quick out of nowhere to, like, to do this when not the only way. This is not the only way to deal with this. The key way for Apple to deal with this problem is to get the US to not do it. Right, that's actually where they maybe have the biggest leverage. Right, to say don't do these tariffs in this way and work that, rather than being like, we're now going to make every single iPhone in India instead of China. It feels very significant, incredibly fast, and also, as we've just spoken about, unbelievably difficult to try and pull off.
So I think, given that you have people who follow Apple much more closely, like Mark Gurman and Wayne Ma, saying, basically, this can't happen. Like, not the way it's described, right? And that was my initial reaction, is like, there is no way that they can supplant all of that. And Gurman makes the good point too. A lot of their manufacturing is focused on kind of like the trailing models that we're fairly familiar with, and not the cutting edge where they have to build whole new techniques. And so, like, a folding phone, is probably not going to be built in India right away, right? But that's probably not going to happen.
Like the most complex iPhone maybe ever. Like that, you're just gonna be like, hey, we'll just use the new factory. Like,
exactly. There's some real problems there. So you combine that with the fact that this was a Financial Times report, and the Financial Times is a absolutely legitimate, upstanding publication, known throughout the business world, kind of like the Wall Street Journal. And I'll just say, a lot of reports about Apple that come in those sorts of places are put there by Apple, right?
Yeah.
I don't know that for sure, but like I think we've seen it before that when Apple wants to set a story, this often is where they go to a respectable business source, and whether it's a very targeted leak or whether it's a kind of surreptitious, like, it wouldn't be so bad if you just mentioned this to this person at the Financial Times, but like that's
No, this
certainly,
to me is just too big a decision to be leaked. This kind of decision right now is happening at
it's
the
a high level.
absolute top of the
Yeah.
company. Nobody's leaking it up from up
No,
there.
this is the kind of thing. If somebody probably was given permission to leak this,
Yes.
and especially since it seems a little outlandish, that's right. That's how we, I think, should probably read this. Is Apple wants the world to know that Apple is willing to move all its iPhone production for the U.S. to India,
Mm-hmm.
for a reason, right? And that reason probably has to do with China and
Yep.
the U.S. And then again, we're back to international intrigue.
Because it's saying like to me and you and to everybody else that's writing about this that is not the Financial Times, this doesn't seem plausible, right? That if somebody came to you and said this, you would write it in such a way to be like, I heard this, but I don't know. But if someone of note tells you, right? If somebody like, then you can write about it, right? Like if you have Tim Cook, it's not Tim Cook, but like, I don't know who it would be, right? But like if you had someone of Craig Vitterigi's level, say, or say it was what is this? Jeff Williams. Jeff Williams
Yeah.
comes to you at
Yeah.
the Financial Times and says, we're doing this. Then you write about it because Jeff Williams just told you it, right?
Exactly.
But if you've heard it from someone over Signal, I don't know if I'm writing that story because it just seems impossible. But if it's come from the right source, you'll write it because they've told you it. And so if they're telling you it, they either believe it or they want you to write the story. And it's I get it, is what I'm saying. It's like there are different levels that you would then write the story because it just doesn't pass the sniff test to me that this could happen in the way it's been described. That by the end of next year, where a factory is still being built, right? It is being built right now. That by the end of next year, every iPhone in America is made in this new facility. It just doesn't seem plausible to me.
It's also possible that this is something that's going down in the production group at Apple where they have, again, it's set a goal. So you tell everybody, here's our goal. And then it's in the Financial Times. And like, we can do like yada, yada, yada. It's in the Financial Times. But like that is it. So we'll say, we don't know, but I would say this report seems to serve a broader Apple interest in making this the context of, not quite we'll take our ball and go home, but like we are all in on producing iPhones in India for the United States market, which again is not pulling out of China. It's pulling United States production out of China. And yes, that sends a message and changes the discussion that is presumably being had between China and the U.S. about trade.
If this story was 6 months ago, I would feel differently about it to how I feel about it right now. Like the fact that this story is right now is what makes me so kind of like conspiratorial about it. Where if this was just a thing that happened uncoupled from big news cycles, then I would maybe be like, oh, maybe they are doing this. Maybe this has come from a project manager somewhere. But it just feels too perfect of a story to be happening right now for me not to think that there's something going on with it, Like that's the whole thing about conspiracy theories. There has to be that like little thing in there that makes you think you could believe it. And for me, I saw this story and immediately my mind went to political drama. Like that's where it went to.
Yeah. Also, I would say, I think it serves Apple like this moment, because what if, we don't know what's going to happen, but what if this tariff thing resolves in a way that's favorable for Apple in the end, or not too unfavorable? Well, great, but you missed a moment. The moment now it's a crisis moment. It's an oh no moment. And when we talk about Apple, like in our member Discord, there was just a comment about how, Apple should have diversified years ago. It's like, well, yeah, everybody knew that, but the financials make it hard, the supply chain makes it hard, and the politics makes it hard, because you're telling China, we love you, but not that much, and we're going to build stuff elsewhere. And so Apple has used Brazil and India to build factories under the excuse of protectionism in those countries, and that they need to diversify because of that. I don't know whether China, how China buys this, if they buy it at all, but I would say I think there's probably an advantage today to saying we have to build in India. It's not because we don't love you. It's because the US government is tariffing you. And if they wait until the storm maybe blows over, then they can't use that excuse. So use it now. Just use it now and say, this is our stated reason for doing this, is because we have to. It's not that we don't love you, and we will keep using you, but it's not you. It's not me either. It's that guy. But you gotta understand. You gotta understand. We gotta do this for reasons, political reasons. I'm just saying it's easier to make that claim today than it might be if they resolve this.
If you would like to get longer ad-free versions of this show each and every week, you should subscribe to Upgrade Plus. Go to getupgradeplus.com. You will get longer ad-free episodes. You will get access to the members Discord that Jason mentioned a moment ago. That is for Relay FM members. There's tons of channels where people are hanging out and chatting every day. You will find like-minded people in the Relay members Discord. But you also get tons of other bonus content. There are 2 monthly members-only Relay shows. There's Spotlight and Cross and Backstage. Backstage is where me and Steven talk about what's going on behind the scenes at Relay. And then there's also Spotlight. They're both in the crossover feeds. But Spotlight is where Kathy Campbell interviews a Relay host every month about their life, about their work. It's a really fun time. And we take those questions that Kathy asks from that Discord. But really, you'll be supporting this show. You will get additional content every week. This week, I want to ask Jason how he uses his terminal e-ink screen thing, because I just got one, and I want some suggestions for how I could use it. I will tell you this, because I think this is an interesting stat. So we work with our friends at Memberful to produce all of our membership content. We have incredibly low churn, which means when people sign up to become Relay members, they stay Relay members. So there is obviously value to the people that decide to sign up and support us. Go to getupgradeplus.com. You can sign up for $7 a month or $70 a year, and you'll get a ton of bonus content, and you support the show, and we'll really appreciate it. Let's finish out with some Ask Upgrade questions. Imtiaz asks, Jason has mentioned a few times about his photo collection being backed up locally. Does he recommend any settings in particular for photos to do this, or is it fairly straightforward? Like, what do you do for local backup of your photos?
I have a Mac with a big hard drive that's set to download all, and then I back that up using Backblaze and Time Machine.
Okay,
that's it.
So
there's nothing special
you're doing it. You're doing it in the Photos app. So in the Photos app, you're like download everything. Don't
download
just,
all.
Offload stuff. And then in Finder, you're making sure that the Photos library is
just a file. So I have that set. That's in that backs up. And it backs up to Backblaze, and also I have a couple of giant external drives that I plug in every so often and run a backup on. That backs all those files up onto the external hard drives. So I've got it, plus it's in iCloud. So
and you don't feel the need to, I don't know, somehow back up the files outside of the photo library container?
No, they're all in the photo.
Need to,
they're all in the photo library container. I'm not. Yeah. I don't have any desire to do that now.
Yeah, I guess that's what I'm doing without the super duper part. I guess it all goes. I have a Time Machine, and I have Backblaze, and I have, that's how I back up mine. And I also have all of my photos downloaded to my iPhone, that's becoming more complicated, Jason. I'm taking a lot more pictures.
Yeah, you're gonna run out of space.
More pictures. Yeah,
you're gonna run out of space.
I've taken thousands of pictures in the last couple of weeks, but I bought the 1 terabyte iPhone this year for that reason. Because I knew that my photos library was about to exponentially grow.
Yep.
An anonymous question asker wrote in and said, I am considering purchasing an M4 Max Mac Studio by the end of the year. Is it anticipated that Apple will increase the prices of its recently launched Macs? Should I make a purchase immediately? I think if you've made a decision, if you have the money available, I am still of the mind that the world is too complicated right now to assume what prices will be in 2 months, and that if you know what you want, if you can afford to do it now, I would do it now. I don't know why you would wait. Honestly, I don't know what the reason would be to wait.
I mean, easy for me to say. I think it's going to be less likely that Apple updates the prices of existing shipping products versus introduces new products at higher prices. But hard to predict anything in the world right now. So I think I agree with Mike. Also, that Mac Studio is brand new.
Yeah.
It just came out. Now's the best time to buy it. There's not going to be another one for at least a year and probably more. So if you have the wherewithal to do it now instead of at the end of the year, I just go ahead and do it.
Yeah. I mean, I'm also of the mind of like, if you've made the decision, I don't know why you haven't just done it already.
I mean, it may be that it's not in the budget and they're waiting for next year for some reason. Like, I get it.
If you feel confident that you will be able to get there, if you're able to do something, maybe there's some kind of financing option which is good for you or whatever. I mean, I would do it because I know what you're saying about shipping products, and I know that they would love to avoid it. But let's just imagine that the 140% tariff comes into play. They're not eating that.
Now's a good time. I mean, again, last fall Mac Studio came out, which it's a great time to get it if you can buy it. And if not now, then as soon as you can afford it, I would probably buy it, just because why not? Now is the good time for it, and we don't know what's going to happen.
This is kind of related to what we were talking about earlier, but let's get a stake in the ground on it. Sean asks, do you believe we will one day see a touchscreen computer running macOS?
I do, because Mark Gurman said there's a MacBook Pro with a touchscreen in the works, and I believe Mark Gurman's sources. I think that there is, and I think that the features that we're seeing and the design stuff that's going to happen is all probably going to point toward that product. That it would seem unlikely that Apple would do design and development work now, not thinking of the fact that they were going to have a touchscreen enabled MacBook Pro in a year or two.
I think the next MacBook Pro, like the next design change of the MacBook Pro, is going to have a touchscreen OLED, and it will have cellular support. I think they're going to go big with it.
I think that's a pretty good bet.
I think that's what it will get. So yeah, I absolutely think that they will do this. I think it is way overdue. Like, this doesn't have to be iPadOS. Like, it's just nice to have a touchscreen, like, in a laptop. Like, it is actually a nice thing. If you've never used it, I know why you could think, why would I do that? But I've used touchscreen laptops, and I really like that experience. But again, it's like, if you've ever used an iPad in a keyboard case, it's a touchscreen laptop. So, like, it's nice to be able to sometimes reach up and swipe on the screen or tap something on the screen, rather than move a mouse cursor. Like, sometimes it's much faster to just go boop, because you have direct motor control as opposed to like go down here, move the thing. So that phrase, every day new children are born who've never seen the Flintstones. Yeah.
That statement, the idea that like time marches on. Well, every day new children are born who think that touching a screen is the primary way you interact with technology.
Yeah.
Every year there are more and more adult iPhone users, iPhone buyers, who they love their iPhones, and then they get a computer and they expect, we already see this, but it's only going to be more, that they expect that you could touch that screen. And so, you need to do it. And Apple not doing it to now, I mean, I think, again, there's some dogma there. But yeah, because we had a touchscreen Chromebook for a while, and like being able to reach up and just scroll, because your hands aren't on the keyboard and you're just sitting there and you just scroll. I mean, I never used it as a primary interaction, but it was nice to have. And it also opens up the ability to do things like fold the keyboard back, go into a tablet mode, use an Apple Pencil. There's lots of other things.
Yep.
I'm sure that if Apple's going to do this, Apple's going to have some magic, secret Apple stuff that they do as a part of it too. So I do.
And I understand. I understand the desire to want to do some work to Mac OS rather than just put a touchscreen on it. Like, I understand the desire to do that, which might be one of the reasons that this project has not come to fruition yet. But I do think they'll do it, and I hope that it happens sooner rather than later, honestly. I think it'd be really nice.
Yeah.
Do you want to ask me this question? Because it's directed at me.
Oh, sure. Jason, who is not me, wants to know, since you're such a fan of open wheel racing in the form of Formula One, how do you feel about IndyCar and specifically the Indianapolis 500? I live in Indianapolis. See, I told you it wasn't me. And the race is getting ready to take over the city for the entire month with all of its activities. Do you watch or care about the race?
I don't know much about IndyCar. In getting this question, I did some Googling and found out that something that I thought was the case was not the case, which is that all IndyCar tracks were ovals like NASCAR. And that is based on me knowing about the Indianapolis 500 because I know how big of a spectacle that is. And
yes,
the Indianapolis Motor Speedway Raceway, I think it's just an oval, and I'm not interested in that personally. But it's not the case for IndyCar. There are some simple track layouts, but there are also more complicated track layouts, which made me a little more interested in it actually, because I was wondering, like, what are those races like and how the cars are built to be able to be interesting and fast and competitive in kind of like very simple track layout, but also tracks that are closer to Formula One tracks. All of this to say, though, I do not have time in my life for another sport because I spend quite a lot of time focused on Formula One. I'm more interested in it than I was before, but I don't have the time for it right now. But I was happy to get this question because I was able to get rid of some preconceived notions I had about IndyCar.
There was a time when the Indianapolis 500 was the number one thing, like number one auto race in America, and NASCAR rose to eclipse it. As a kid, I always watched the Indy 500. And I still, if I'm around on Memorial Day weekend, I will make an effort to watch it. It's literally, Mike, you found it. It's the one car race I will watch a year.
Yeah.
It's the only one I will watch. And some of that is absolutely tradition. I watch it and it's fun. And I am also reminded that I don't actually want to ever watch more of it, of motorsports than that. But it is a thing that I enjoy watching.
I think the Indy 500 still gets the largest audience of any, like, for a single thing. I think it's like they get like 350,000 people go there to watch it.
Oh yeah, certainly in person. That's a real thing. And yeah, I think it's fun. The technology is really, as you know from Formula One, right? The technology has really transformed that sport. It is. Yeah, it's fallen sort of, IndyCar sort of fallen on hard times because NASCAR sort of eclipsed it, and also I think there's this thing where F1 has become much more popular in America. It's a little bit like the challenge of
they're losing out to F1. I think
it's good for football or soccer that Americans have access to. Like, I just watch Premier League games and it's not a problem, and the Bundesliga is on, and like there are and Serie A is on. Like, you can get European football leagues in America now and just watch those. And that's good. It does make it harder if you're MLS, because MLS, is trying to do American soccer, but they have to compete on TV with the best soccer in the world. And it's a little like that, where the success of Formula One in America has been rough for IndyCar in America. So, but anyway, I'll turn it
Pinnacle
on.
of motorsport, Jason.
I'll turn it on. It's a fun thing to have on a Memorial Day weekend if I'm not doing something else. Absolutely.
If you would like to send in your questions, please go to upgradefeedback.com. You can also send us in your feedback and follow up there too. Thank you to our members who support us with Upgrade Plus. You can go to getupgradeplus.com to learn more. You can find us on YouTube by searching for the Upgrade Podcast. Thank you to Vitally and Fitbod for their support of this week's episode. But most of all, thank you for listening. We'll be back next week. Until then, say goodbye, Jason Snell.
Goodbye, everybody.